There Will Be Banter is back with the lovable gun-toting liberal after a brief hiatus. Veronika Lopez, how are you, madam?
Most excellent, as always.
As she is currently imbibing on some sort of beverage, looks like a lot like what Christine.
Moonshine margarita.
Ooh, that sounds healthy. All right, I like it. It's
It's
Thursday. It's
so
cheat day.
bad.
And then we have the average civilian reporter, as you know, Kristina Wong.
Hey,
How are you,
it
madam?
was decent before.
What is it?
It was decent before.
Well, now
Now,
you've slid down a few pegs.
oh,
How did you get demoted? What happened since I've been gone?
I mean, it's a rough time of year. We're coming up on a new fiscal year. You gotta re-earn it all.
Life comes at you fast.
It really does. It really does. And unfortunately, this week we are sans the CIA, retired CIA spook, Ron Moeller. But Christina has proof of life that he is okay and he is there. Now, the pheasants or peasants, however you want to go with it, they are not okay, as you can see. Ron has already taken their lives, and I'm sure will do whatever it is hill folk in the South Dakota Black Hills do with those things. But that's where we're at. So, and then myself, of course, the Bourbon snob, as you can see behind me, the finest in all the land of bourbon, and I will imbibe. As my daughter looks at me disapprovingly, and she's about to walk behind us in 3 as she bonks me on the head. First day back at high school, by the way, today.
Yay.
Officially back on campus. She gave it a 5 out of 10. They said they had like plastic screens in the classrooms to separate the teachers from the students. So I told her a 5 out of 10 is failing, which I don't know if I feel like it was a success. She didn't die, so that's good. No? But that's where we are. So yes, we're a little fired up this evening. I am, but it's time for some Debbie Downer action because it is a very important topic and it has been brought up. We were supposed to get into it a few weeks ago, but we'll finally do this now. But it kind of takes into account the effect of all the economic shutdown, obviously, but due to the coronavirus, obviously every state's different. I'm in California. Things here are, depending on what county you're in, are very interesting. Now, Napa County, where I live, she's obviously able to go to school as of this today. Things are trending in the good path. Restaurants are starting to have space open, available again inside. But where I work is going the opposite direction, and they are on the verge of completely shutting down again. So obviously, California is very different from where Veronika is. Christine, I meant to ask you, because I've seen enough pictures over the weeks, but before we get into the actual topic of the suicides and substance abuse and potentially domestic abuse amongst women and children, how's it been in DC where you are? Because
it's been returning to normal. I think we are in phase 2 or 3. And so, on the weekends, you see more people coming out, and DC has done this, at least the part where I live. It's called Ward 2, and I think there's like 6 or 7 wards. But so in Ward 2, a lot of these restaurants have offered street seating, and it's actually kind of cool. It's very looks very European. You're sitting outdoors in this nice cafe, and a lot of street been converted, and so that's been kind of nice. But of course, the weather has allowed it. But
exactly.
I mean, the only thing that is different is that there's like a limit on how many people can be in the gym, or how many people can be in the store. But people are going back shopping and all that stuff.
But everybody's wearing a mask. That's the bottom line, right?
Yeah. Sorry to be a downer, but things are looking better here in DC.
I mean, trust me, I am curious as how it would be in the land of our betters, if you will. But no, I think what you pointed out, Napa's been pretty adaptive with the outdoor seating, and I don't know if I already mentioned it on this or not, but in downtown, they've blocked off an entire street for some of the restaurants to just completely take over that street and put tables and things like that for them to kind of maximize what they couldn't put indoors. But again, like you said, that's been allowed especially here, because as you know, in the Bay Area, it doesn't rain for 6 months out of the year, but we're coming up on that season where the weather's not going to be as forgiving. But Veronika, and you are in North Carolina, and I think you said it's been business as usual for the most part, right?
Yeah, so I mean, we have a lot of, I'm not going to name names, right? Because I've, what is what it is. But like, we had a lot of businesses that kind of remained open even though they technically weren't supposed to because of the whole economic ramifications, right? Like they just couldn't afford to stay closed.
Right.
Some people were like, hey, it's cheaper for me to take the fine of being open than it is for me to close. Yeah. So,
interesting.
So a lot of that, but I think the biggest thing has been, like the feeling of isolation here. And that's probably the biggest thing. Cause I'm in a military community. I work, for those of you guys that don't know, I work on Fort Bragg as a contractor now, still in a military reserve capacity as well. But, I'm around soldiers all day long, and it's been sort of weird because up until recently, we weren't really doing 100% manning. We're still kind of on like sort of odd shift work. Yeah. But there were several months there where we were all working from home. All of our meetings were over Zoom, and really our only like human contact was when you were leaving your house and going to the grocery store. So it's been kind of weird, I guess, is just adapting to like the changes of the new normal, as they keep saying.
I refuse. Nope, I will not accept that.
Yeah, I think for me, like, I'm lucky because I have roommates, right? So like I wasn't completely isolated, but I have a lot of buddies that are, either divorced, going through a divorce, living on their own, and this really affected them in a really, really bad way. So
that kind of leads into what we're going to talk about. But before we get into that aspect of it, so let's touch on the some of the stories you shared. Is like they're seeing a spike not only in suicides, but specifically specifically military veterans and suicide amongst them. And from what I ascertained from the articles you sent, that it's already up from this period in time of last year, 30%. And the only thing before, you guys comment on that, my thing, one of the articles you sent, Veronika, was that senior leaders are looking to combat this with shortened tours. I don't know. How about maybe, we got to kind of watch what I say here, but how can someone say it? I mean, how about we just don't have the tours to begin with? How about that?
Right.
I'm just saying.
Or I have so many issues with like the way that the military handles mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and they I think that over the last 10 years, I've seen a lot more effort in trying to normalize behavioral health, right? But
because when I came in, it was still like, if you ever go, they're gonna get rid of you. Like there's no toleration of it.
Right. And that was a huge thing. And there's still that fear, that stigma.
Yeah.
And I think that people just assume like, oh, if you have some sort of behavioral disorder, like you're a crazy person.
Right.
And what people don't realize is that we're so used to the high op tempo of being in a military or like, this fast paced reactive environment, that normalizing that type of stress and that carrying over to like your home life is a form of anxiety. When you go home from a deployment and you don't feel like your wife and your children or your husband and your significant other understand you as a person, you feel like kind of isolated. That is a form of depression, right? It's a sense of loss.
Yeah.
And I think it's really hard to, and especially because like I see it a lot more with military men, like a lot of my buddies more than anything else, that like normalizing this feeling of saying like, hey, I'm not okay is okay to say. I'm not okay is okay to feel.
Right.
and then it's a lot of cultural, like, and then just on top of all of that, not just the military culture, but like, your personal culture, like in Hispanic families, like, behavior health and mental health is for white people. Like, white people go to therapists. Like, we don't do that here. Go drink some tequila, get some modelos, and call it a day. Like,
you're right. That's true.
And that's just how we were taught to deal with it. And it's funny because, like, so me personally, like, my own personal experience with this is that, I do see a therapist regularly, just because of some of my experiences and the things that I've gone through. So with that said, like, my biggest struggle has always been feeling like I couldn't talk to my family about some of the things that I experienced overseas. Without getting into too much into it, I was a first responder on a situation where a service member died overseas. And it wasn't my first time seeing somebody pass away, but it was a very different situation, right?
Yeah.
And it's not that the death necessarily bothered me, but coming home and feeling like I had nobody to talk to about it. And when the death anniversary happened, I was like, fuck, I'm alone. Like, that was really that was really hard. Because my family's like, oh,
sorry,
they're there. Like, like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Like,
no, it's
they're there.
Yeah. Well,
so it's hard. And I think, like, in those moments of like isolation and feeling completely like alone or maybe misunderstood, or like you kind of just fall into like this sort of, and then you got seasonal depression and everything else, right? So like having, for me, talking to somebody has been incredibly helpful, especially somebody else with a military background who's like, like, these are my experiences and I understand what you're going through in XYZ capacity. Like, I can't relate to, I don't know exactly what you're going through, but I can relate in these ways, which means a lot. So
Kristina, before we move in, no, but that's one of the things. Honestly, I like, there's an individual I am trying to work with and help now. And admittedly, as I admit to them, I am not good. I am not a mental health expert. I am not good at listening to some things from time to time. I may hear it, but I don't think I'm very good at conveying the message I want to convey. And I think it gets lost in interpretation on their part. And I don't know. I'm just to the point where I don't even respond, because I feel like they're taking something that I'm saying that I don't intend. So I don't want to make it worse. So I just don't say anything. Right. But I've tried to make aware to them, like, you have a path, you have options, you just have to take advantage of them. But they don't, like, that's something that person can't act upon.
You can't see it when you're,
right. And I don't understand that. So like you said, like, no, I don't relate. I've never felt that. Like, I've had my experiences in my career. I've seen and been a part of things that most people have had issues, or some people have had issues with, from the same unit. I have never had an issue with that. And I am grateful for not having that, to be affected that way. I don't know why, but I'm just not. But Kristina, what have you seen? Because I know you work around a lot. You know a lot of veterans. You've seen a lot of this stuff. What's kind of your take on everything Veronika just laid out?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
Might as well hit it.
So veterans issues actually is the thing that brought me into defense reporting. So I started, I was at ABC News, and I didn't have a beat. I wanted to cover the State Department, actually. And the guy who was doing the State Department, he was very possessive of his beat, and kind of, I think he felt threatened. And so I learned everything I could about the Afghanistan war. I was obsessed because it was like the first war that I was really learning about. I got really, really, really obsessed with it. But from the State Department angle, so it was like the civilian surge and all that stuff. But because of that, I started learning about, of course, the military side. And the military reporter producer there was totally cool with me, you know, kind of sniping from his beat. But because he was doing the main like Pentagon stuff, I started doing veterans issues. And so I started learning a lot about PTSD, about military suicide, military spouses, family issues. And that's what really got me, is just these stories of, you know, heroic stories, but just, you know, stories of sacrifice and, you know, what veterans face once they come home. And with suicide, so I did cover suicide a lot. And it was always very frustrating because there's all these programs, there's all these resources, there's, you know, military leaders talk at a very high level about caring about suicide and bringing suicide down. And but it never gets to the service member. I wouldn't say never, but it just doesn't get to the service member who is suffering. And I think they've tried a lot of different things. I think peer-to-peer outreach works. But I think, you know, it's, you know, some military leaders have said, you know, I have suffered myself from issues and depression, but that's very rare, and it's still extremely rare.
Well,
And so, yeah,
no, go ahead.
I don't think they're doing enough to get rid of the stigma, but also when there is a military suicide death, it's not talked about. I mean, it's under investigation, you know, and then just stays under investigation and just goes away, so you never know. And then every year there's a report about this many suicides. So it's not these stories don't really have a face, and Americans just sort of overlook them, and they don't know, you know. And there's just so much just, you should, you know, call this number if you're feeling suicidal, or like do that. But you know, you have to get to the person who is actually suffering, because they're suffering for many personal, you know, very personal reasons.
Right.
And it's hard to talk about those personal reasons, you know, whether it's money or, you know, substance abuse or whatever. And then, sorry, I don't want to take too long, but I would say my, you know, one thing I want to mention is, you know, just from my years of you know, being around, you know, service members, dating service members, there's this it seems like
Throw that in,
you know,
there.
Exactly. There's this kind of desire to be perfect, or to show this, like, I am perfect, I am flawless, you know, look at me in my uniform, I am just, you know, nothing's wrong, I'm strong, I can deal with it. And I think that makes it so much worse, because you're just suppressing all these issues that you need to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, Veronika, before you hop in, but so that's kind of something I wanted to touch on, because yes, you're not wrong with that last part. But here's what I understand, because again, you know, come January, it'll be 19 years for me, right? And so when I came back from Iraq in 2004, my platoon sergeant and two of my squad leaders were all in Desert Storm. And I remember we came back, and I think what it's called now is like that, what is it? The PDRHA, whatever, the post deployment assessment, whatever that you do when you come back. Well, we were the first ones to do it. Cause like I said, we were the first we went in through the invasion, and we were one of the first reserve units to come out. So there was this big focus on like reserve units coming back from Iraq. And I remember we had this huge survey, and it was, this was before we did everything on computer like we do now, but it was like this big packet was given to us, and we're getting ready to fly out of Baghdad, and they're doing all this stuff with us. And I remember all three of them, my platoon sergeant and my two squad leaders, were like, don't be honest, because if you're honest, they're going to kick you out. Now, I don't know if that's because of what they were told when they came back from Desert Storm, but, you know, 23-year-old Eric is like, all right, no. You know what I mean? Like, and I think kind of what you're saying, a lot of that still goes on today, based on both of what you guys have said, is nothing can actually get to the service member unless they're honest. Not a lot of people want to be honest because of everything you just said at the end. It ties into what is the perception of the American soldier, which is at complete conflict of what we're trying to actually do, right? We're trying to say it's okay for you to go seek help, but at the same time, that flies into the face of what the American soldier is perceived as through the American public. You know, this unflappable, totally infallible, superhuman dude that's like, or woman who can do anything and nothing affects them.
Yeah,
But,
and woman.
and I threw that in there, and woman, because you guys are all doing stuff. You guys do a lot of stuff.
Right here.
You guys can't IT like me, no big deal.
But that's kind of, I feel like still the perception, and Veronika, this is what I wanted to ask you about, because I don't know, like when I read these stats, like it's kind of like what Kristina said, the stats, there's no face to the stat, but the stat here that I'm reading is the latest numbers are from 2018 for Americans as a whole. 48,344 Americans have committed suicide or taken their lives in 2018. Going off of the numbers that we always hear, oh, is it 22 veterans a day? Is it 20? Is it a little more than that? Whatever. It's a roundabout number. You're looking at 7,300 on average veterans per year. To me, that doesn't seem real. So out of 48,000 Americans, like, what is that? 1/7 or 1/6 are veterans doing that? Like, I don't know. To me, it's a daunting figure, but at the same time, we can conceptualize what 7,300 veterans is. It's essentially a division is just like, gone.
Right. And I think I struggle with those same numbers, right? So like the stats that I'm looking at, like it's August 31st of this year compared to last year in 2019. As of August 31st of this year, active duty has had 114 suicides. Now that doesn't
it's not veterans, right?
That doesn't include veterans,
right?
But that's 114 active duty service members. It doesn't include reservists or National Guard either, right? Which you see a spike in the reservists as well, in the reserve component as well, versus 88 August 31st in 2019. So I struggle with the numbers because depending on how depending on what you're reporting, it's skewed.
Yeah.
But to the point that you guys were making earlier about the availability of care, I think the biggest problem that I have with the way that the military handles it, and again, just from my own personal experience, this is 11 years on the reserve side, 6 years active duty. The biggest issue that I have with it is that they fucking gloss over everything, right? Like they send you through an SRP, or they just give you the questionnaire bullshit at the beginning of a deployment or at the end of a deployment. Hey, how are you feeling today? How many drinks did you have when you go home?
In the last
are
15
you good?
days, have you? Yeah.
Right. In the last 15 days, have you had a nightmare? And that's the thing. You're literally just pushed through this process like cattle. So you get your 6 minutes in front of the care. Thank you. Yeah. So you get your 6 minutes in front of the provider, and they're like, just checking fucking blocks.
Right.
Because it's some reservist guy who's like,
who doesn't want to make it look like he just invalidated a unit who can't deploy now because you put them under the mandatory manning percentage.
Under quota. They're exactly. Or even returning, where they're just kind of like checking the block, and they kind of just give you the. Yeah, like sometimes they don't even bother to make eye contact, right? So they're just like, okay, yeah, so you're good, and you felt your knees hurt. Oh, got it. Okay, yeah, go talk to the VA. Like it's very impersonal, and it's like in that 6 minute window, am I supposed to be like, hey man, like I don't feel good.
Exactly.
I'm not sleeping well. I'm kind of stressed out all the time. I sort of feel anxious. Okay, like this guy's not going to take the time to talk to you, and I think that's what really bothers me about the way that the military does it, right? So like, and then on active duty, it's sort of, you can choose to go talk to behavioral health, or the chaplain's readily available to you. But again, a lot of people don't feel comfortable putting themselves in a position to be vulnerable and say, hey, I'm just not handling this well. Or I feel anxious. I feel stressed out. I feel really fucking sad. Why? Is that normal? Is that okay? And it is. It's perfectly fucking normal. Not just for the military, just as human beings. Like being under duress, especially when you're working 6 to 7 days a week.
Or now,
you're away from your family. You're not. or during a fucking pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Like the uncertainty, and yeah, active duty soldiers, first and the 15th, you're getting a paycheck.
Yep.
Life's pretty decent right now, but that doesn't mean that their parents who might have lost their jobs, or their sister's house who's under foreclosure now, or their little brother who can't make rent, or whatever those things aren't affecting them as well. Right? Like, and that's what sort of bothers me, is that the military, it's not just that the American population isn't putting a face to these suicides. I feel like the military's having a hard time doing it too.
Oh yeah.
Like there's this disconnect of, hey, these are fucking people. Every day they're people with real life crap that's happening and affecting them, just as it would any other person walking the street. And I think we need to be a little bit more.
Yeah, don't get me started on that aspect.
The outreach, and like, yeah, and I think there needs to be a better approach. And the problem is that a better approach costs money, and it costs time that the military they either need to be willing to invest it or they don't. And that's ultimately what it is.
Kristina, hop in here.
Sorry. my rant for the night.
Yes, I know, I like it.
It's such a interesting, discussion and topic, and I just kind of make little notes whenever anyone says anything that, I think it's just such a great point. I mean, with the numbers thing, so, Eric, you said 30%, and then I think Veronika, 114. It's like, it's hard to sift through these numbers. I read a Task and Purpose article, and then I read an AP article, and they're totally different. The AP article says military suicides are up as much as 20% in COVID. It said the Army is up 30%. So I think maybe that's where the 30% comes from.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, everyone tunes out. And so you have the, I've been doing the 22 push-up challenge. I think I've done it for 3 years or so. I don't know if it's helping. I did like a 22 of something every day. Sometimes I get really tired, and I do like 22 bicep curls in my robe or something.
I did 22 bourbons. No, I'm just kidding.
The 40-ounce curls.
Oh yeah, all day.
No, I think the last day I did 22 burpees. They were kind of like really lame burpees, but so I mean,
nobody should do burpees on purpose.
Well, that's what we're gonna do.
Unless you're prescribed them in a workout, just leave the burpees alone.
I hate burpees.
22 calories on the assault bike.
Ooh, that's even worse.
No. Good plan. And so those are, they seem like good ways to kind of make it real, but then you also have, people get annoyed. It's like you post your 22 push-ups and people are like, oh God, this person just wants attention, and they make you do stuff like that.
I think the thing with that, and it's not to cut you off, but I think I've seen that as well. And I'll be honest, like a few years ago when I first saw that pop up, my initial reaction was, oh, come on, this is like the fucking ice bucket water challenge thing. It's like, you're not doing anything. You're making yourself feel like you're bringing awareness to it. But, and I'm not doing that to slight anything that you're doing. I get it. And I understand. I at least know who you are and know what you're involved in. But I think my biggest issue with this, and this is what I wanted to get your opinion, both of your opinions on, obviously, is, this was the number that I thought was just like, I get it, but at the same time, I'm like, that's fucking insane. Like, female veterans are almost 2.5 times more likely to take their lives than non-female veterans. Like, that's fucking ridiculous. Now, I can probably attribute it on a surface to what? Probably sexual assault, unfortunately, whatever it is. But everything I've ever read says that you don't have sexual assault taking place in the military more than in the general public. So I don't know what your guys' opinion on why that is amongst the female veteran population, why it's almost 2.5 times higher. What do you think, Veronika?
I don't know if I can speak to that, to be honest with you. I mean, I'd say sexual assault would probably be sexual assault would be my first assumption, to be completely honest with you. I also, this sounds kind of shitty, but I don't think that females who are exposed to traumatic situations overseas are taken as seriously either. Does that kind of make sense?
No, yeah.
You know, like, oh, like, bitch, you
They
didn't see
assume they're not
combat,
gonna
or like,
see that,
you don't
right?
know.
Like, they
Yeah, there's like this assumption, right? So
like
like the
it's not gonna
situation that
find
I was
them, yeah.
specifically, right? Like this is the situation that I was specifically in. Like I'm IT, right?
Yeah.
Like there was never going to be a situation where I was going to be exposed to any danger or harm. Like I'm supposed to be in cooled server rooms with air conditioning all the time, right?
Yeah.
Awesome shit, right? So I'm in Syria, and it's a non-combat related death, but you know, a young man passed away, and for 45 minutes, like I was one of the few people trying to resuscitate him, and it fucking sucked. Like this young man died underneath my hands, and it's still hard to talk about sometimes, but it is what it is. But the effects of what I experienced with a group of people was very profound, and leaving that group that understood this situation that I was in, this bubble that we were in Syria, and then coming home and like coming back into the world and like not having that support group anymore was fucking weird. And I mean, I experienced that in my first deployment to Afghanistan, where like I just had a tight knit group of friends, and then I came back and I was thrown into the world again. I was like, oh, this is there's children. Like, why are there children? Oh, I can't curse in public anymore. Like, this is a problem now. Like, so just like getting used to everyday life was really weird after a completely, a deployment where like nothing bad happened. And then after something, I experienced something, and like even trying to talk to my family, like, hey, how was your deployment? I was like, well, it was really good. I got to do all these things. I accomplished all this stuff. And this one really crappy situation happened, and like trying to talk about it with them was it got to the point where I was like, I don't want to talk about this at all. And I didn't for years. I was like, this is like fucking impossible to talk about, because I felt like every time I was talking about it, it made it more uncomfortable, because then they were either treating me like I was,
something's
fucked
wrong.
up or weird.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or like they were tiptoeing around because they didn't know what to say. They didn't know how to talk to me. And luckily, like, again, like I'm in a military community, and talking about it with my friends who have also been through similar situations, to include other females. I have one of my closest friends is the combat camera over at JSOC. Like, she's seen and experienced some insane
those
shit,
people fucking
and like
see everything.
And like, so getting
like
to
that
talk,
job has got like
PTSD
PTSD as like a byproduct, I would think, almost.
Right. Yeah. And the funny thing is that she doesn't call it PTSD. She says PTS. So she's like, it's post-traumatic stress. She's like, it's not a disorder. This is just something that happens. Yeah. She's like, this is something that happens when you go through trauma.
Yeah.
And I was like, girl, yes. Like, I respect the fuck out of that, because it is. It's post-traumatic stress.
That's actually pretty cool.
So I respected that, because like I feel like as soon as you put disorder at the end of it, right?
It's
like
an automatic stigma.
It becomes a stigma. There's something wrong with me.
Right.
And there isn't. This was a natural human reaction to experiencing something traumatic. And that's for people that went through shit as a kid. This is for people that go through things go through a traumatic divorce, through a child passing away, a parent, like, this is just stuff that people experience all the time.
Right. It's not there's no monopoly on the military for having it.
I think for post-traumatic stress. So like, and I think that maybe the thing with the female military community is that there's, I guess, less, I don't know. I feel like maybe women are taken a little bit less seriously in certain occasions.
Oh, well, I mean, I've seen enough just over, like I said, I've been in long enough to see a lot of dumb, stupid shit and stuff that doesn't get taken seriously. But Kristina, I wanted to ask you before you come back in on this, but you mentioned you wanting to learn everything you could about Afghanistan. Did you ever go over there?
I did, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my obsession from like, I mean, I came in pretty late, but that's kind of when things started kind of heating up, I guess you would say, after the initial invasion. But in 2009, so from 2009 to when I finally went in 2013.
Hey, that's what I would.
Obsessed. We were there at the same time.
We were there together. Veronika was in Kandahar, yeah, and I was in Kabul.
So I was in, I was there for a month. I started in Kabul. I went down to Kandahar, and then I went to Shindan in the west.
Okay.
And I
Did
went
you
back
hang out
to
in the? Did
Kabul.
you hang out on the
Small
boardwalk
world,
in
man. Small
Kandahar?
world.
Yeah.
I did.
The
And,
boardwalk wasn't the same. They
yeah.
had shut most of it down, but it was still there. It was still kind of. Fridays was terrible. The food was awful at that point.
I don't give a shit. That shawarma place was
Fridays.
Shawarma is always
kitties,
awesome.
titties.
There was an infestation there, so I couldn't go to Fridays. But I went to Green Beans. Green Beans.
Oh
was
yeah,
good.
I mean green bean is the standard at that point. Unless you're in Kuwait, and where Veronika and I met, not one but two Starbucks, Zone 1 and Zone 6.
No
Like
big deal.
that
2 Starbucks.
Just chilling. I would hit them both up because I lived in Zone 6 and worked in Zone 1, so I would go to both on my way to work. But you know,
there were only 4 gyms and 1 pool. What a shithole.
fucking Kuwait is awful. Worst deployment ever. Came back with abs. Unbelievable. I hated
Deployment.
I did go to the gym in Kabul once with my.
Was it in NKC, the one in the basement?
No, it was in a tent. It wasn't in a basement. It was
Were you at NKC, like the new Kabul compound? Is that where you were?
This was by the Kabul airport.
Okay, no, I know where I know that gym. Yes. Yeah. Well, that was fucking right with the little it was like a tennis court kind of.
Right. It was like a big, and then there was like this like computer cafe or something in there.
There was like I don't know if you remember. I don't know if you ever got to work out with her, but sorry because this is just me nerding out. But there was like this Air Force female captain who was like super.
Was it Stacia? Stacia Wassam? No.
I think so.
She was orange hair.
Yeah, she was a fucking beast. Oh my god, that woman was in. I would just sit there and watch her like I can't do any of this. Like, it was ridiculous. She was Veronika. Like this girl was like amazing. Stupid in shape. It's just dumb. You like imagine like the female version of Tim. Like the stuff just doesn't make sense. Like you know what I mean? Like stupid strong. Can do whatever. Doesn't get tired.
I'm sorry, but I have to work really hard to be moderately fit. Fuck those people.
Yes, but yeah, that was her. Yes. So yeah. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. I keep cutting Kristina off.
So so that was the time of my life. I know I shouldn't talk about it like that, but it was just for as a report, being a reporter, just being.
Yeah. No, fuck yeah. Say that and be proud of it. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah, because we say the same shit. Time of my life. Fuck yeah.
Exactly. No,
girl, say it. Own that shit.
I loved every one of my deployments and.
Fuck yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I mean, hopefully, I'll get to go back and. So I remember, about the females. I've heard stories like when they go to the VA, people are like, "Oh, are you here for your spouse?" or like, "Are you here to pick up your spouse?" Blah blah blah. So I think it's true they're not being taken, as seriously, and they just don't get the support they need. But I remember, so when I was down in, I think this was Leatherneck.
Okay.
I was like only female. So they put the reporters in this really crappy tent with these, sorry to any PAOs out there.
Sounds like the transient tents in Kandahar is what it sounds like. That's what you're
Oh, in Kandahar, I was
no AC, no lights, just wander around aimlessly.
Kandahar was like a resort. So when I went from
the connexes that we got to sleep in with AC, they were fucking awesome.
But Leatherneck, the British ran Leatherneck, if I remember right. The British and the Marines.
I thought.
Yeah, Marines.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Marines. So they had shitty living conditions. Sorry, Marines. Sorry, any Marines out there, but
they don't need anything anyway.
It was terrible. So I was in this huge tent, and they're like wooden bunks and desks that are falling apart and it's just me and the Marines. It was all about drawing down at that time, right? So it was just like,
which we didn't.
Yeah, it's true. 7 years later,
my entire deployment purpose was drawing down. Amazing. 6 years later, here we are.
Yeah, they didn't want me to go out and see anything because the last thing they wanted is for me to get killed. So.
Or for you to be honest, probably.
Dropping the truth bombs, but so
they don't like that.
No.
No.
I don't like that.
So I was out by all the contractors, right? We're talking like the locals, the what do you call them? Like the third country.
Oh, TCNs, third country nationals. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So they were all like from, I'm not sure, like Bangladesh or
Yeah.
where.
Oh yeah, totally. Most of them are from Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India, but primarily Bangladesh.
And so
Veronika, you remember like the zone
The stabbing?
Yeah, like zones. Man, we got some stories, Kristina.
The Pakistanis and the Indians don't like each other.
Oh,
there was a stabbing in the kitchen.
There's all kinds of weird shit going on.
Wow.
Kuwait is rough.
I would see like signs every now and then hinting at something really disturbing, you know, but like I never saw anything. But so I would have to go to the shower tent, and I'd have to go a long ways to the shower tent, and I'd have to pass by hundreds of these contractors, and they'd all kind of hang outside of their tent.
Sounds like Kuwait.
Like walk to the shower, you know. I felt like they knew where I was going, and I felt super vulnerable, and I would bring my little knife with me, and I'd like have it in my hand.
No, that's a real fucking thing, because that
I had a Kmart in my shower bag.
Yeah, but that was zone 6. That was the other thing in zone 6. Man, I don't know if you remember, Veronika. It may have been before you got there.
Rapes?
Or not. Yes, like that was a real fucking thing. These TCNs were assaulting soldiers, the females.
Yeah.
Like we literally, like, it was around this time, because I remember I was one of the first ones put on the hey, we're gonna do, they called it's a stupid name, but that's what they called it in our division, at least, was sharp patrols. It was me and an 03, and we had to sit out there and like walk the shower areas, because this shit was like, this is a real fucking problem. But I think it all ties into what we're talking about. Like, I don't face that issue as a male. I don't. Now I know males.
That's not true, though.
No, I'm saying
that's not true.
I know men can be sexually assaulted. I got it. However, I have never felt that fucking way. I've never felt, oh my God, I wonder if something's going to happen to me. And I can understand because I had a ton of female soldiers when I was a platoon sergeant in Kuwait when we met. I had like 11 female soldiers. And of course, I would literally wonder, like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, I can't walk with every one of them. You know what I mean? Like, that's not something they should experience or feel. That's just because I don't feel that. So they shouldn't feel anything I don't. But that's a reality.
The shower tent that I was going to one day had a zip. Like someone had unzipped it, and there were no other females around. So I'm like, you know, okay, so I'm gonna be like taking a shower, and someone's gonna come in. I actually brought the knife and put it where you put the soap. You know, like I actually had it there just in case I had to like take it out, and you know.
Yeah, no, but
yeah.
All right, but you see,
I've had to have so many conversations with my female soldiers. Like you know, my last tour in Kuwait, like I bounced around. I was TDY constantly out of Kuwait to like Syria and Jordan and Turkey or wherever. But you know,
were you going to JTC in Jordan? The joint training compound there with the
no.
Okay, because I was wondering, because that was another place. I at least had all male soldiers there when I would go do site visits, but I remember thinking, like, if there were females here, like, this isn't good. Because they were sandwiched. The female trailer was sandwiched in between the Jordanian army and ours. So they had no choice but to walk by all of them. And you got to remember this. I hate to say this, but it's just true. So I don't care whoever's listening to this and thinks like, oh my God, you're insensitive to other. No, it's not about other fucking cultures. It's the fact that they don't fucking respect our female service members. They don't see them as service members. They see them as women. And they also see them as how they are perceived in their country, that they are not equals. That's Jordan. That's what I'm describing.
The only thing I'll say to that is that we have a lot of American male soldiers that feel the same way.
No, I'm with you, but you got to at least admit, like, we're slightly better.
No, yes, yes, and I think, like, I experienced sexual harassment in the military, but I think growing up in a Hispanic machismo household and around a lot of Hispanic men where that's very common, and being raised to be very outspoken and vocal about that stuff, like that wasn't really an issue for me. I'd be like, watch your fucking mouth. Like, you know, my
Yeah,
phone rack came out and I was
I've
just,
never thought after I met you that you had a lot of issues with this, but not every female is like you.
No, and that was the issue that I saw more often than not. You know, I'm in IT. I'm in a very small and specialized MOS. So if anybody out there knows what a 35 Tango is, there's not a whole lot of us, and there's even less females. So every shop I've ever been in has been all male, and I've always been the only female, to include the job that I have now. I am the only female technician. So with that, you know, the very rare occasion I'd have a female soldier, even my male soldiers, hey, if you guys experience anything, fucking come to me. I will 100% back you up. I don't give a shit what rank, who they are.
Right.
Like, I will get my E5 rank back. They can eat a dick. Like, fuck them. Like,
If you don't know,
find
Veronika
me. I got you.
She's acquired that rank a few times already.
A couple times. It is what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
6 months. Fuck it. Whatever.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, I 100% like off the bat, initial counseling.
Yeah.
You have an issue, come find me. And that's probably one of the biggest things. Like, overseas, especially, I think you start to get like that cabin fever where being friendly is seen as flirtatious and a lot of lines get crossed. And I think that's just kind of the military in general, right? Because you get a lot of people from different backgrounds, and not everybody has the same idea of like what is appropriate.
Well, you're describing
sexual harassment is kind of on a scale, right? Because what I think is appropriate and the way that I joke with my friends may be completely inappropriate to another person and their friends.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's the thing, like, right. So it's kind of the sliding scale of like personal comfort. And so me saying something that I would say to one of my friends that I've known for years in front of you may be like, oh my God, she's sexually harassing that person. And then I get reported XYZ.
Right.
And this is not to say sexual harassment, sexual assault, two fucking different things, right? And two completely different MOs. Like, sexual assault is like you're a predator and you're a terrible person, and I hope bad things happen to you. Sexual harassment, on the other hand, I think is a sliding scale. And it can be taught. I think appropriate behavior can be taught. And I think one of the best approaches that the military took to that was, hey, check your buddies. Like, if you see your friend hitting on a girl who's too drunk to function, or vice versa,
right,
take him home. Like, this is not okay. Or, hey, buddy, like, that's not cool to say, whatever. But with that said, overseas, because that line is so blurred, you do get a lot of instances where things are very deliberate and they are like harassment, borderlining on like verbal sexual assault. Yeah. And people don't always believe, and especially men deal with this a lot and they're not believed at all. So the stigma for women is bad, but when it comes to men, it's fucking worse. The amount of sexual assaults that happen or are perpetrated against men in the military are so underreported. We don't have an accurate number of how many men actually experience this. And that's a fact. And it's fucking horrible. And again, like, how do you talk to somebody about that? Hey, I was deployed and I was sexually assaulted by one of my teammates or by a TCN or whatever. Like, men don't feel like they can talk about that shit. And again, in a 6-minute fucking window where you're sitting there with the primary care provider on a fucking redeployment. Right. So like, hey, how was your tour? Fine.
Yeah. Because you just want to go home. But I mean, think about what
you just want to go the fuck home.
Yeah. Kristina, before you hop back in here, but kind of what she's talking about. So let me just go back into where Veronika and I met in Kuwait, right? Yeah. So there we were. No shit. There we were. CrossFit Eric John, right? All doing the CrossFit thing. But what was our core group, right? There was yourself, there was me, there was Rob, Tim, both officers, company grade officers. There was Lindsay, female nurse officer, Sarah, E5. Like, we were this mixed, but it was
a grab bag.
Yeah, I know, but but that's not like the way we were around each other was as if we weren't in the military, right? But if we separated and we saw each other outside of that gym, there wasn't the assumption. Yeah, it was like, oh, hey, Rob, you know what I mean? Like, we were very professional with each other, but at the same time, there was, when we were in the gym, we worked out together. That's what we did. And we were buddies, with each other. Yeah, we were buddies. But I know for a fact, because my my LT, because I was a platoon sergeant. My platoon leader came to me at some point and was like, hey, I've been hearing like maybe you guys are a little inappropriate with each other at times in the gym. And I'm like, you're probably right. But there's, you know what I mean? Like you probably, yeah. If someone walked by us and knew our ranks and heard the way we spoke with each other in that setting, then yeah, there would probably be some, you know, they'd probably be a little disheartened by that. But we all coached. So we all coached like people from different, and even when you're in a coaching setting, I'm talking to lieutenant colonels and fucking Fulberg colonels like, hey, fucking you're fucked up. Your form sucks. Hey, fix that, sir, ma'am, whatever.
I know you know how to fucking hip thrust. Let's go.
Yeah, but I could only do that because I was a coach. But at the same time, you know, I was a fucking E7 and I'm talking, but you're very right in that there is that whole thing where the military, especially on deployments, especially to deployments to Kuwait, where the lines are blurred because we're around each other in settings that we're normally are in the stateside, that it creates a level of comfort, I would say, and sometimes a false level of comfort. And you do or say things that you probably shouldn't. I won't pretend I'm not guilty of that. I've probably said some dumb stuff before, but whatever. Fortunately, I never did anything stupid, and I never fortunately had anything done to me stupid, right? So that's great. But anyway, fucking Kristina, hop back in here. Christina's like, I'm a reporter. I'm documenting all this.
This is the hot scoop.
Christina, what are you sipping on this evening?
Yeah, is that water?
That's a fucking mason jar is what that is. You missed last week. She had this huge fucking martini glass.
Yeah, that was like a lemon drop, but I didn't have my trusty bartender making a drink for me tonight.
Where the fuck is Aaron? Aaron, what are you doing, bro? Where you at?
He's there. He's getting the stink eye right now. I love it.
Last week, Aaron's in the background just walking by with like a mask on. Like he's just doing
like fucking Bane? What's happening?
Yeah.
What did I miss?
I wanted to point it out, but I was like, I'm just gonna let it fly. But yeah, he like walks behind Kristina with a mask on. I'm like, you guys wear masks in your own apartment with each other?
We like to keep safe at home, okay? You know,
there's some role playing going on. There's some role playing is what that is. That's fine. You guys do what you do.
Hey, you know what? I don't kink shame. Y'all do you.
Not here. We are.
Weeks.
What is the word?
Let your freak flag fly.
Fly it. Ow. Yeah. Kristina, you got anything to add to that before we transition on to some more lighthearted instances? I can't even speak.
Is politics? Yeah, politics. I think at this point is for lighthearted.
I can't even speak. Whatever.
Words are hard.
When I went to Afghanistan in 2013, my boyfriend at the time, he was I'm always wary of what I say, you know, because I never know who's gonna watch. I don't know if he's gonna watch, but anyway. So I was dating this guy, and he like so thoroughly scared me about guys, you know, at military guys that
he sounds very secure already. Sounds like I think we just highlighted why he's an ex.
Yep. And so it was so
100%.
funny because so we went shopping for little like deployment clothes, and I got like most giant contractor style pants. Like I looked like Stay Puft, like
were they 5'11" tactical? Is that what
they were? They were gigantic, and I looked probably just so funny. Like, who the hell is this person? Because I was wearing like these baggy ass clothes, long sleeve with like long pants, and like no one talked to me. You know, I'm like, hey, what's going on here? But there was like, you know, I was so on guard. Like, so I'd go into the DFAC, right, on Kabul, and I forget what the base is, what it was called, but so I go into
Phoenix?
the DFAC. No, not Phoenix. The, you know, near the Kabul airport. It was like right next to.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, gotcha. Kaya is what we called it, at least.
Kaya.
Yeah, Kaya.
Well, no.
There you go.
Kaya.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And so I'd walk into the DFAC and I would just like look at all the people around me because I was, you know, one of the there were females, but there were way more males, and I was just like, so like, oh, you know, I'm just gonna get my food. I'm just gonna sit. You know, I would like go back to the little table and just eat by myself, like all alone, afraid to talk to people. I was such a nerd, and I think I gained weight. Everyone said I'd lose weight, but I was eating. I was going to the DPAC like 3 times a day. I was eating dessert. So
the food in Afghanistan was great.
It was so good. And Iraq, delicious.
I don't understand why we haven't figured this out stateside, but apparently you have to leave the United States to get good dining facility food. I don't know why.
Midnight chow is always so good.
Midnight chow should be everywhere, not just
all
in
the
military.
Chow, all the hours of
exactly.
chow.
Anyone who's watching this, if you want to have midnight chow, just do it. If you get up in
why
the
the
middle of
fuck
the night,
can I not have steak? Can I have steak and eggs at all hours of the day?
Like what the omelet. Fuck? I don't get it. Make the omelet, make the bacon, eat it, and go back to bed. That's how we do this.
Right?
You get like food stir fried for you on the spot.
Yes.
I'm about to go sign up for a deployment. Fuck. I'm hungry.
Just for the food. It's just for the food.
I would eating chocolate milk all the time just because they had it, you know.
Can you imagine this was like World War II? People are like, yeah, I think I would just go fight the Germans so I get some good food. I hear the food's great. I'm just gonna go fucking fight Nazis.
Oh, and the Turks, they had like a little Turkish coffee bar. They were in charge of the espresso.
Turkish coffee is an amazing. I have some. I make it. Great. Come on out, babe.
So good.
Done. We're just sitting here. There goes Maddie.
So yeah, it was a good time. But yeah. So that's all I would add about the sexual harassment. No one sexually harassed me. Yeah, of the military guys.
I will assure you this: you were there a month. You give it enough time, it'll probably unfortunately take place at some point.
So I'm like a deployment 7, I think. Like if the deployment scale, maybe 8 on a good day if I do some makeup. But like
deployment 7.
You know, but like it's funny.
I just got that.
Yeah, there it is. It's finally hit.
But it's
like
funny.
20 or like 30. Come on,
girl. Thanks.
Look,
I think it's funny because like, go ahead.
No, I'm not gonna say it. Maddie's gonna get mad at me.
No, I'm just I think for me, like, I've been on 3 tours. I've been to Afghanistan, Iraq, Jordan, Turkey, Syria.
Yeah, you went to Syria. I'm a little jealous.
I've been all over
do that.
Yeah. Oh, dude, Syria's fucking gorgeous, and it's awful what's happening.
So was Afghanistan.
Beautiful country. Beautiful country.
The entire Middle East is beautiful, but unfortunately, I specifically can't go there without getting my fucking head chopped off, and I'm a little upset about that.
You can't go there without getting your head chopped off.
I'm blonde hair and green eyes.
A tan. I got stopped in Jordan. They're like, "You from here?" And I'm like, "No, Mexicans, different brown people." Like, I'm sorry.
You can at least dress the part. I can't. I'm a fucking white dude with blonde hair and green eyes. Head's getting chopped off as soon as I touch down on the airport.
Dude, you could just pretend to be one of like the fucking Kazakhstan people, because all of like Alexander the Great's fucking.
All I can do is this.
Russian.
This is it. I can't.
Afghan Russian.
Right, that's what I'm saying. They got like the red beards and shit. You'll be fine.
I wish I was. No, it's not for me. I would love to. Honestly, I would love to visit. I've said that since I went to Iraq in 2003. I would love to visit. I can't. Even Iraq was fucking beautiful. Like the Tigris and the Euphrates, those rivers, like the riverbanks, the massive wild fucking palm trees.
I think the tile, dude, the actual like architecture is. I've been to like 2 of Saddam's palaces. Like,
yeah, I got to go to
just
one.
The architecture is unreal, just beautiful, and like.
But think of you were in Syria. Look at everything that fucking ISIS destroyed, like historically.
Everything. But you know what? I will, and that's a story for another day, dude. But like, I had an amazing time in Syria.
I believe it.
Despite the horrible things that happened. So
I've heard.
But just to wrap up my point, it's funny because like one of the biggest things about sexual assault in the military, you know, like we're constantly told like, be careful what you wear. don't wear this. And I had a sergeant major that told me that at one point.
Yeah, which makes
and he was
no
like,
sense.
I want, right, exactly. And I'm like,
in the fucking
you know,
army.
well, I think what really upset me about the whole thing was like, you realize that sexual assault happens regardless of what you're wearing, right? Like, nobody's looking at me in my black and gold PTs and saying, I'm gonna fucking tear that apart. Like, nobody, that doesn't happen, right? Like, and that's the thing. Like, if somebody's going to attack you and somebody's going to assault you, it's because of a completely different psychology and a completely different set of reasons.
That's on
like,
them. It's
that,
not on, it's
right.
It's
it has
them.
nothing to do with what I'm wearing or what I'm doing.
Right.
So to kind of wrap up like a positive story, well, sort of positive story, I was getting ready to deploy my first deployment to Afghanistan, and I was deploying with combat engineers, right? Which are like just goons. Like combat engineers are just goons.
Speaking of which, Veronika, you need to join us on our weekly goon Zoom that we do.
Okay, first off, this is the second time you've mentioned it, and I still don't have an actual invite, so I don't want to hear it.
Every Wednesday. We didn't do it this week. There was one, but it wasn't the official one. But there will be one next week because specifically it's the first Wednesday after the election, which is what we're going to cover next. But no, you're absolutely welcome. I just want you to know what you're getting into because you're like your own entity, and most of these people don't align with you. But you'll get along with them because you can hold your own.
Big surprise. That's like been my
I was about to say you'll be fine.
Years.
But yeah, no, you know what? I'm sending you the link next Wednesday. We need to get you.
Deal. I'm in.
All right. 6 o'clock, same time. So that's what we're doing this now. Okay.
I'm in.
All right.
So real quick, I deploy with all these goons, and we get ready to go out. And I'm like, you know, I'm a little party animal. I'm like 22 at the time. I'm like, hey, we'll meet at this bar. It'll be fun. And I'm married for like 20 minutes at this point. So me and my now ex-husband.
It's true. When I met Veronika,
my 20-minute ex-husband.
Or you were engaged?
No. I was divorced at that. No, I was divorced at that. Oh no, that was
you were engaged.
That's a whole other thing.
You were engaged.
He thought we were engaged. I never said yes. So no, I was not.
All right. Well, there we go.
The intent was there. So we go. So we go to this bar pregame, check the place out, and the bartender actually roofied myself, my ex-husband, and the two friends that we showed up with.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it turns out this is in Augusta, Georgia. So it turns out that this seedy ass bar apparently has a reputation for this. I didn't know that. I also found out after the fact that apparently bartenders will roofie a woman and the guys that she's with because it's easier to get to the girl, right?
Yeah.
So I've had one drink. I can have a few drinks and be pretty okay. But I had one drink and I was blacked out, fucked up. And it was my combat engineer buddies that got me and my ex-husband to our hotel room, made sure we were okay, checked on us in the morning, brought us food, brought us water, made sure we had our wallets and our cell phones. So like the notion that like, oh, vulnerable women just get attacked for the sake of being attacked by men is this like asinine theory to me. Like, and the fact that the military preached that for so long pissed me off because I feel like I was if anybody could have been attacked and would have never known, it would have been me in that situation because I don't know. And I was fully dressed. Like I had, apparently I fell down at one point, but like, you know, I got back to my hotel room. All of my stuff was there. All my clothes was on. My ex-husband was on the bed. Yeah. Like we were good. You know what I mean? Like, and that's one of those things, like I feel very, very strongly about the fact that good people there are predominantly good people in the military. Do we let some psychos and some sociopaths in? Yes, I got it. You can't screen everybody. It is what it is. But for the most part, most people are good people, especially service members and service members towards females.
Yeah, because what you described has always been my experience. I have never been in nothing but a mixed unit, male, females. And everywhere I've gone from day one to now, any male or female in that unit, we're brothers and sisters, and that's it. Does some fraternization, does that go on? Yeah, it's fucking males and females. Like, let's not pretend that that's not natural. But at the same time,
that's in every corporate environment.
Exactly.
Everywhere. Everywhere.
But in my experience, I have been very fortunate. And that's why it's disheartening to read these things because I've never seen it. I have seen one actual sexual assault case in my 19 years, but for the most part, it's everything you just described. If I was ever at a unit, or if we were ever deployed, or we were on an annual training and we're out, every one of us, it's brother and sister. That's how we're dealing with each other. And that's how I've always been brought up, no matter what. But unfortunately, these stats aren't coming out of nowhere. So clearly there's something else is going on, but it's just not in my experience, my purview, my perspective. Got it. Kristina, get us one final comment on this stuff.
We both have dark hair, girl. That's why.
Yeah, if you got nothing on it, great. We'll transition and we'll make our little predictions and we'll get the hell out of here. But you got anything else?
I would just say on that last point, there's some horny females too.
Thank you. Oh yes. There are some females that take advantage of the fucking system. Thank you.
That's why we have Veronika on here, to keep it real. And Kristina's backing her up because it's true. Real talk.
Yep.
On There Will Be Banter. Real banter. Write that down. So, all right. So you've heard everything we've had to talk about tonight regarding the suicides in the military and how they are up based off of a variety of factors. Most obvious would be the COVID-19 shutdowns through the economy and just how it is as a whole. We didn't get into some of the other things, but before we get out of here, it would be pretty non-observant on our part to not make mention of the fact that in a few days, there will be the 2020 presidential election. I am going to go to Kristina first and get her prediction on when we come back on There Will Be Banter episode 9 next week. Who will be our president-elect, in your opinion?
I'm out of alcohol.
I think this is really hard. I think it could be I think it could be Trump, because it all comes down to voter registration and who turns out. And it just seems that there's a lot of excitement. I mean, there's excitement on both sides, but there's been like a surge of excitement in the last couple of weeks for Trump. And did you see Lil Wayne came out and he endorsed Trump today?
Not just him, but Ice Cube's come out. There's been several high-profile rappers who've come out, and I don't know how much that affects turnout one way or the other. But it is worth mentioning. Yeah, I don't think it affects, but it is worth mentioning because, I mean, let's be honest. When 94% of one race in the country votes one way, I think that's a problem on its own. I mean, we should be a little more open to just, voting, because no one questions what the percentages of white people are, but it's like, oh, black Americans have to vote this way, or I don't know, maybe you could speak to the Asian or the Chinese American vote. I don't know what it means, but for whatever reason, white people can vote for whoever they want. Everyone else has to be one way, as far as what
it's kind of weird, like just being Chinese American, but my dad is actually part Creole. So my great-grandmother is Creole. And so I haven't ever fallen into like one category ever. We
got to discuss that dichotomy one day. That's interesting.
Right?
Oh wait, Chinese and Creole.
I want some stir-fried jambalaya. Yeah, girl. What? Aren't you guys making taco casserole for dinner? Right
now? Exactly. Yes, taco casserole. I'm waiting to
go. Like the equivalent.
Fucking the best food in this country is from mixed
taco pies over there, or whatever.
Taco pie Thursday or whatever day.
I do love to eat.
We all do.
And it is hard to lose weight. I too have to work very, very hard.
I feel you, girl. I feel you.
So, all right. So, Kristina is, she thinks Trump, and Veronika, as Kristina takes another sip, what do you think?
I predict Biden, and my caveat to that is that I think Biden's going to take the popular vote, simply because of the statistics of the early voting turnout has been predominantly Democratic. But again, a lot of Republicans are planning on voting the day of, from my understanding. So we'll see. I do think that because so much talk has happened about election fraud, I think there's going to be, I think when Biden wins, it's going to be a huge fucking upset. And that's, I'm fuck who wins. I'm predicting an absolute shit show regardless of who wins. That's my prediction.
And so yeah, you're absolutely right, because that's my thing. The way I am at this point, I feel the reaction to whoever wins will be the exact same.
Yeah.
If Biden wins, shit's gonna go down. If Trump wins, shit's gonna go down. And I am very fortunate in my friend group, my peer group, whatever. I know people from both sides. I know people who are very well connected to both sides. And the consensus that I've been able to deduce at this point is that Trump's going to win. And I don't say that. Yeah, I don't say that with any real conviction. I just know what I've been told or what the perception is. And one of the things that really kind of made me finally move more to that side is that CNN runs a national poll 1 week prior to the election.
God, why are you watching CNN?
No, I don't watch it. I just see it on Twitter. But the funny thing was, like, it was actually Jake Tapper's account that tweeted it out. It was the October 23rd to the 26th poll. It's their final national poll before the election, and they have Vice President Biden up 8 points. And so the first thing I think, let me see what this poll was in 2016. So of course I Google it, and Hillary Clinton was up 12 points in 2016. So I can't remember the term. I wrote it down. I've already forgotten it. But I think, number one, polling is antiquated in 2020. It was antiquated in 2016. It's primarily done through landline phones. I know this. I was a fucking political science major. It's silly. Polling is silly. But there's also, I think, a very real preference bias. Whereas I say that as if these people are inclined to answer or respond to a poll, they're not going to just volunteer the fact that they're pro-Trump. I just don't think they will, because they're made to feel as if that's a problem. No one is made to feel.
I'm going to tell you right now that all of the fucking Trump and MAGA flags in my neighborhood disagree with you.
No, that you're in a very right, but you're in a very conservative
red
area.
state.
Right. So, but overall, my point is this: that I don't think any of the polling is accurate, and I won't be surprised either way. If Biden wins, whatever. If Trump wins, whatever. But I do think at this point today, I do think there will be a president reelect for Donald Trump, and we'll figure it out, and we'll talk about this next week. So, ladies, you got any parting shots? You want a parting shot? No, Veronika.
Finish my drink. A little bit left.
You just made her drink more with your
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right. I don't know if you guys follow Jesse Kelly. He's kind of a.
I do. I know he's an interesting guy. You know.
His whole thing is to be a sexist jerk, right? And he does it for fun, and he seems like he's a good father and a good husband and all. But I remember when he came out, a long time ago with the coronavirus. He's like, we can't lock down. I don't know what he said about the masks, but he predicted like all these terrible consequences because of the lockdowns. And I remember being like pretty terrified in the beginning, and so I was, but months later, I'm like, he might have had a point. And then so about a week ago, he predicted that Trump is going to win re-election. Because people just vote for the incumbent. He said normally they do, historically they do. And so I'm kind of, he is actually kind of a smart guy. So
yeah,
maybe we'll get him to watch it now. But,
and that does, I think you're right. But it also ties into my thing is I talked about this with Maddie earlier. Yeah, I mean, we had a good bounce back today, but so Maddie, it kind of feels the same way that she thinks Trump will win. But when you talk about the incumbent thing, this is why I come back to, like, If there was ever a more vulnerable incumbent, it was President Trump.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, the Democrats sided with not option 1, 2, 3, not even option 4. They went with the guy who was never even top 4 in any primary ever, and they nominated Joe Biden. And that's why I just, for the life of me, this shit just doesn't make any fucking sense. And I guess we'll figure it out around this time. We'll start having a clearer picture on Tuesday around this time next week. But no, I'm with you, because the incumbent, there's no, how can there be excitement for this guy on the opposition?
Maybe it's an M. Night Shyamalan movie and like Joe Jorgensen wins.
So, well, I told you, my
what a
brother
twist.
There's
Kanye.
500 million votes for Jorgensen. Yeah.
I think Kanye should someday run for public office in the future.
I don't.
He's got like, he's diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I think he'd be the most ridiculous.
Not need to be making decisions. He just needs to make music.
He can't even make shoes. God, what is his clothing line? The fuck?
They're so expensive is all I'm saying. Like
there's some of the ugliest shoes I've ever seen in my life. And the fact that like people will buy anything you put a celebrity name to. That's all it is.
$100. Crazy. The Yeezy slides are like what, 500, 600 bucks or something, and they're like sweatpants and sweatshirts.
As much as a fucking wedding dress. It's ridiculous.
Oh man,
it's all made in Wuhan. I'm just saying.
You're just picking stuff up now.
Yeah, that's what I do. All right, we're gonna get the hell out of here. Remember, look, you may not think like all of us, but you probably think like one of us. All right. There will be banter. This was episode, 8. Next week's 9. But either way, we'll be back here next week. Hopefully we'll have Ron fresh off his hunting for peasants or pheasants, whichever. I don't know. He's probably doing both. That's what retired spooks do. Thank you to Veronika. Thank you for Kristina. We'll see you next week. There will be banter.
Adios.